Hi everyone, I'm John from Wiley Visuals, and today we're talking about diffusion filters. Diffusion filters are something that I've used more and more over the past few years. Usually for me, they've always been either a rental item or something that I've borrowed. However, in the last few weeks, the state of Queensland has completely closed its borders due to COVID-19, meaning I can't get to my nearest rental houses anymore. So I finally decided to buy my own instead. I jumped online and started looking for a 4x5 Promist filter and immediately remembered why I don't own one yet. They're up to $1,000 Australian each by the time you pay shipping and taxes. Now this is pretty crazy because when you look at one of these filters, it essentially looks like someone took a regular glass filter and left it on the shelf for a year gathering dust. That's basically how they get their special effect, by mimicking a dirty lens. But when you think of it in the long run, this is something you might use on every single shoot with every single lens and camera you'll own for the rest of your career. So over time it does make sense. I broadened my search though and instead settled on a 77mm threaded Tiffen Black Promist 1/8. Now this will work on most of the lenses I currently own, but if you want to use a filter with serious cinema glass, you're going to need those rectangle ones that drop into a matte box and work on just about any lens. However, for around $150, I figured it was a much wiser investment for now to stick to the smaller threaded filter. Now the Tiffen Black Promist are just one of the popular types of diffusion. There are lots of others such as the Hollywood Black Magic or the Tiffen Glimmer Glass line. But they all do essentially the same thing, and that's to reduce contrast and soften the highlights. A lot of people describe the way diffusion filters work as taking away the digital edge, which is a pretty vague statement. So what they do is they add a very slight blur that particularly helps with skin tones and covering up slight blemishes or wrinkles. Because this blur is more pronounced on the highlights, you still get plenty of detail showing through in other areas. It's a unique look that definitely helps push your images towards something that would be considered more cinematic or perhaps reminiscent of film. You also get a blooming effect around the highlights in your image. This can add a certain atmosphere to your scenes, particularly those that have practical lights, and it also helps smooth out the hard clipping that's often seen around the sun or other bright light sources when you're using digital cinema cameras. Now most diffusion filters are available in different strengths like 1/16, 1/8, 1/4, half, full, +2, +3 and so on. The larger numbers mean a stronger effect. Something like a 1/8 is pretty minimal and you can almost leave one in front of your lens all the time if it suits your style. But as you go into the whole number strengths, it becomes more of a special effect that you might only use for something like a dream sequence or a really stylized look. It's also worth noting that longer lenses will exaggerate the effect because they're essentially zooming on the filter and its effects. So if you're liking the look of a quarter diffusion filter on a 35mm lens, you might need to drop down to a 1/8 diffusion if you swap to an 85mm lens and you want to keep it consistent. Now I haven't got a whole lot of side-by-side footage to show you and compare because I'm just not the kind of person who goes and shoots repetitive scenes just for the sake of comparison. But I did convince my wife to jump in front of the camera for a quick test to show you the difference. With the 1/8 filter, the effect is fairly subtle, but definitely adds that little bit of softening that makes her look even more beautiful. If you're trying to get cinematic images, there's a bucket load of things you need to be getting right, and there is never a quick, definitive solution. However, using diffusion filters is certainly something you want to consider to help your images stand apart. Certainly for some things like weddings or fashion, it's almost a no-brainer and something you can leave on 100% of the time. Other projects or styles might call for it in a more selective way. If you know more about diffusion now than you did 5 minutes ago, then please give this video a thumbs up below. And don't forget to subscribe for more tips about video production in the future.